We define a mini-grid as any kind of network that is not defined, connected to the main grid. So this could be large mini-grids providing electricity to towns and cities, having tens of thousands of customers and installed capacity of several megawatts, to very tiny mini-grids in, for example, Nepal, where you provide electricity to just 15 households with a very small hydro generation device of just several kilowatts. We have isolated grids, we have microgrids, and basically for us all of that is part of the mini-grid definition. Mini-grids have been around for a long time. It is even with many of the current high-income countries like the US, the Netherlands, Spain, other countries where networks were built around economic hubs, around the main cities, and only when the national economies grew, the mini-grids were interconnected. One of the key elements is really that there's local ownership, so that there's a very strong government commitment and leadership in the electricity access agenda, and with that a comprehensive approach to looking at grid extension, on mini-grids and on individual solar systems. So that's very important. Nigeria is a very good example where the stars started to align. So we had a very strong commitment from the government side to work on energy access and mini-grids. There was the introduction by the regulator of new and very comprehensive mini-grid regulations. There already were 7 or 8 companies doing mini-grids on a private sector basis in the country. And now with the latest technology developments, the cost of solar and batteries, as well as smart meters, energy efficient appliances coming into the picture, as well as a lot of emphasis also from the bank that this is a good solution towards the access problem. You make sure that the technical standards of the mini-grid are in line with those of the main grid, so that when the main grid arrives, it's very easy to interconnect. We've also learned from an organizational and financial perspective that you need to give the mini-grid operator the options of how to exit. There hasn't been one country in the world that have reached universal access without any kind of subsidy. And in many of our client countries, the affordability is lower than the overall cost. So typically we call that the viability gap funding. When it comes down to subsidies, is to try to link it to the capital investments. So try to link it to the upfront funding of the investment. So in that case, if you need to spend $100 on the investment of a solar hybrid mini-grid, that maybe you provide $60 of that through subsidies, allowing for the total investment to go down, and with that to have more affordable tariffs in place. And you can disperse these subsidies on a performance basis. In some countries they have a universal tariff across the board, or a lifeline tariff, and those are givens. It means that the government needs to be aware that the viability gap, the tariffs versus covering of the costs plus some profit margin if the private sector comes in, needs to be filled with public funding. You have other countries where they have a comprehensive regulation that allows for a much closer or complete cost-reflective tariff. So in this case, the tariffs are higher, and the customers are paying for that, and based on that, there's sufficient revenue to recoup the investment as well as have a healthy profit margin.